This episode is brought to you by Hunt Hickory Creek. And new to Hunt Hickory Creek this year is their Central Kansas Lodge. They're going to be running hunters from the end of October all the way through January, and their main hunting area is located between Quivira National Refuge and Cheyenne Bottoms. Central Kansas is a special place for waterfowl hunting, and during the peak migration, those refuges hold hundreds of thousands, if not close to millions of ducks and geese at a time. Mainly specklebelly, snow, and lesser Canada geese, mallards, pintails, and widgeon. You may have an opportunity to harvest all of these species in one hunt. You'll be very comfortable every morning in their Avian X A-frame blinds or laying on backboards, and they hunt over 1,200 of the industry's finest decoys. So visit their website at www.hunthickorycreek.com for booking information and follow them throughout the year on Facebook and Instagram. And don't miss your opportunity at a hunt of a lifetime with Hunt Hickory Creek. If you're going to hunt Kansas, hunt Hickory Creek. Welcome to the Fowl Front Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, where our goal is to recruit and educate new hunters while entertaining the rest of you. Without new hunters and the mentorship of those more seasoned, this passion as we know it faces an uncertain future. So get the word out, turn the volume up, and enjoy the show, because you're on the Fowl Front. This week's episode is brought to you by Dive Bomb Industries, the fastest growing, most affordable decoys on the market, with unmatched customer service. Visit them online at divebombindustries.com, on Instagram or Facebook at Dive Bomb Industries. Or go ahead and give them a call anytime, 7 days a week, at 314-322-7468. And go ahead and use the promo code FOWLFRONT, all undercase with a space in between fowl and front, for 10% off your next purchase of Dive Bomb decoys. This episode is also brought to you by Grip Pack Calls. If you want to produce a more versatile, realistic, and higher quality sound with all the ease of a double reed, whether you're looking to up your game or just starting out, let a Grip Pack call work just as hard for you as the Grip Pack crew did to develop and bring you next level quality with easy blowing calls. Grip Pack Calls. Find your grit. This episode is also supported by Goose Ninja Call Lanyards, MDR Custom Woodworks, Twisted Wire Upland Hunts out of Grand Island, Nebraska, and from our friends over at High Prairie Sportsman over on YouTube. All right, today on the Fowl Front Waterfowl Podcast, we've got Duck Gun Chronicles and Freelance Duck Hunter from the Duck Gun Podcast. So, what's up, guys?
Hey, thank you for having us on. I've been excited about this for quite a while.
Yep, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, you guys had me on last week. That was pretty fun to get interviewed for a change. Kind of mixing it up.
Yeah, it's a lot different having someone else at the helm, kind of asking the questions and leading the podcast. And I think I'm gonna relax and have a good break tonight.
Yeah, and the other thing too, though, is it is nice to have somebody that kind of understands, audio levels and how to keep things rolling, and someone that's done recording before.
Yeah. Definitely, you'll learn as you go.
Exactly.
I don't know. That's all Jordan's department.
Oh, and just so we don't forget him and leave him out here, baby in the corner. We got Tegan in here too. So
my mom was getting pounded with the small jokes, man.
I know. So, but all right. So today we're going to be talking about how to video your hunts, and we got two semi-pros here on video and hunts. You guys have really successful YouTube channels. You want to give us a little lowdown on how you guys both got started? You guys can either trade off or tandem it, whatever you want. How your YouTube channels got started?
Why don't you go first, Jordan?
All right, so my YouTube channel got started. I guess you'd have to go kind of like go a little bit further back to like how I started hunting. My grandpa was a big influence on me to hunt. Big influence on me being a dog lover, specifically of hunting dogs. And then from there, I'm just like, later in my life, not that late. I'm still in my 20s, but I wasn't into the hunting scene a lot, and so I joined into the hunting. Just a few years back, and I work in a cubicle 9 to 5, and just missing the outdoors and wanting to be able to join in creation and be out there. Just a little bit different than being in the cubicle, which a lot of society lives that way now. And if you don't have the outdoors in your life, you're really missing out. So that's kind of where I got started into hunting. And then the YouTube, I really just started at the same time. And once you're doing it, one thing that I kind of want to borrow from Ben Potter, said this when he was on our show, actually, that he wants to do duck hunting justice with his films. And I think that's a cool way of saying it, because the main reason I started doing YouTube is kind of to show people like what it is to hunt, and it was just, started small. Like I want to show my family, show friends like, hey, this is what I'm doing when I'm gun hunting. And it's awesome being out there in creation. A lot of people don't get that and don't get to be out there. And when you show them that, you kind of bring back something of your experience to them and do duck hunting justice.
Absolutely. So did you start off duck hunting, or did you hunt anything before that?
So I guess that kind of goes back to my grandpa, and he started me off when I was a kid. My grandpa and my dad, and my grandpa was a huge upland game hunter, and he had the whole kennel. He'd have 4 bird dogs at the same time, English pointers, and actually named my dog after his favorite dog, Chief, which is pretty cool. Chief was an awesome dog, my grandpa's dog, the pointer. And then, Chief's got big shoes to fill. And, so that's where I started doing quail hunting in southern Indiana with my grandpa. And he traveled the country, just going everywhere to hunt. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do a lot of that. But our tradition was when we go to visit them, because I lived about 3 to 4 hours away from them. And Thanksgiving morning, we'd go out there and quail hunt. And we did that for a few years, and then my grandpa got too old to go, and since he's passed away. But on lives the tradition of hunting, and I kind of picked up the waterfowl hunting separately, just because we don't have upland game in my area. So the fact that we don't have quail or pheasant in large abundance, the duck hunting is right there, and I jumped into that, and really am passionate about waterfowling at this point.
Awesome. It's great that's kind of the way that you connect with your grandpa, and I feel the same sentiments. I started off upland hunting as well. So when did you got into videography and video? Is it the right word? Videography?
Yeah, videography, cinematography, taking video, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really,
was that something that you picked up when you started hunting, or did you already have some exposure into that beforehand?
That's something that I didn't have exposure in beforehand. I guess when I started my YouTube, I did like a few little, fishing videos. I kind of like saw other people doing them, and I was fly fishing at the time. Tried to emulate them and do some, kind of cool fly fishing. Obviously, super super amateur, and like even now, I'm not like much more than an amateur. Obviously, always trying to sharpen your skills and do the best to tell your story with every tool you have. But yeah, I didn't have any experience really before starting the YouTube stuff.
Right. Well, awesome. Well, Elliot, what about you?
Well, kind of like you guys, I started out upland game hunting as well, and we did a lot of pheasant and quail hunting, and even got really heavily into prairie chicken hunting, which we had a really nice population in our state at the time. And so these are my junior high and high school years. And my dad always had a video camera, and he was always making home videos, and he was always taking the camera out on the hunt with us. So I've got a bunch of home videos of just hunts. Now, it's not like he wasn't trying to get kill shots. It was just us goofing around and moments. So having a camera on hunts with us was somewhat normal to me. And during that time, my dad and I got an idea that we were going to start a competition, and we were going to make a point system, and each different type of bird was worth a certain number of points. Like a goose was 10 points, a mallard drake was 6, a dove was 2. So we had this elaborate point system, and it was just a competition between the two of us. So he started this spreadsheet to keep track of all this. And it was so much fun trying to win that. But after a few years went on, we went to college, the spreadsheet turned into, instead of a contest, it just became recording records of what we were doing with notes, and we kind of started journaling a little bit. My dad started writing some stories of our hunts, and so this spreadsheet developed over the years, and about, I'd say 5 years ago, at the beginning of the year, I went back and I was going through each and every hunt in the spreadsheet, and I realized that I just couldn't remember enough of each hunt. And so I told my dad, I said, look, I'm going to start a video log, because I'm looking at these hunts, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, and some of them don't have any notes. I just can't remember these hunts, and I want to be able to remember them. So I told him for this whole year I was going to video log, and I never did it. So the next year comes around, and my father-in-law came over and just gave me this little video camera, this JVC Evro. And I said, okay, this year I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a video log. And my idea was simply, after the hunt was over, I was just going to record my thoughts and feelings about the hunt. Well, I decided to bring this camera with me on the hunt instead of doing it afterwards, and I just hit record a bunch of times. And I put that up on YouTube. I named it Freelance Duck Hunting because I love that term. I got it from Wade Bourne off of Ducks Unlimited shows. He used that term quite a bit. And I just loved that term, and I thought it summed up what we were, because we were 100% public land hunters. So I hit record a bunch on the first time. Actually, not even that much. It's only about a 4-minute video, and put it on YouTube, and had no real thoughts of anyone watching it. And to my surprise, people were actually started watching it. A lot more than what I thought. I mean, it wasn't getting a ton of views, but I didn't know how YouTube worked. I didn't know what it took to actually get people to watch your videos, but people started watching it. Enough started watching it that I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So instead of doing a log after the hunts, I'm going to start just bringing the camera with me and hitting record a bunch. So that's what I started doing, and after about, I'd say 5 hunts, I was like, man, people are commenting, they're and at that time you could monetize your videos no matter what, and I certainly wasn't making a lot of money, but I mean, seeing like $1, $2, I was like, holy cow, I'm actually, maybe I could at some point in my life get a check for $100, and that kind of became the goal. It's like, if I could one time in my life get a check from YouTube for $100 and get maybe 100 subscribers, that would be the deal, and so I made an intro. By the end of season 1, there was enough people watching it that I was all in to actually trying to make something that other people might want to view. So in the off season of season 1 and season 2, I just finished season 3. Season 4 is coming up, to give people a little context if they don't watch my videos. But in between season 1 and season 2, then I upgraded my camera and really tried to hone in, okay, what can I do to actually start building an audience and making this in a way to where I'm sharing the hunt and get kill shots. Because season 1, I wasn't even really trying to get kill shots at all. I was a little tiny bit as the season went on, but mostly it was just kind of, here's us, here's what we're doing, So after season 1, I was like, okay, it's time to, I'm really going to make a go at this and see what happens. And it just became such a fun hobby. It was just like, man, once you kind of get the bug and people start watching, it's so enjoyable that you just keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. First thing I got to say there, Elliot, is 1, Fumble Mitts is the man.
Yeah.
And 2,
absolutely.
I think that's really cool to hear that you guys started logging all those stats when you were in high school and then into college, because to me that's just, it shows the evolution of FDH and how far it's come with the Freelance Stats website now. It's kind of cool to think that you have something that's pretty unique there, and that started off as, just you and your family trying to keep track of your hunts.
Yeah, that now, like you said, I have a site that I developed called Freelance Hunt Stats, and it's available. There's a free version and a paid version, but the evolution of that site is really a story all in its own, because had been working on this elaborate Excel spreadsheet for years and years with a dream of having a website developed. Now, when I came up with that dream, it had nothing to do with anyone else. It had nothing. Same thing with my videos. It's like all these ideas are just for me. My videos were just for me. The website I wanted to have developed was just because I personally wanted it. And then once everything started going, I was like, well, maybe other people would like this too, So the website is an interesting story in itself for sure.
If there's one thing I can interject in there, I never heard the story about you having the point system, and man, that sounds like that needs to be added to your hunt stats as well. Because
like a game.
I mean, that just sounds yeah. I think that'd be cool. I mean, obviously you could see people kind of taking it to almost an extreme with that. You got to be careful with that because obviously numbers isn't the most important thing. But I still think it'd be really cool, just to see kind of like what the score would be at the end of the season. Compete with yourself from the previous season, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're in Indiana, you get like a handicap, where in Kansas, like maybe you get you only get half the points.
Yeah. Yeah. I never actually thought about bringing back the point system. That's a good idea. One thing I'm really excited about it that we can't do now, but I want to integrate within the year is being able to, and I don't know what name it would be, whether it be groups or crews or clans. So my hunting party, we could connect our accounts and then view our group statistics and not just individual statistics. And then you could share those and compare, like the Foul Front crew could compare their stats with, not to make it a contest necessarily, but being able to link.
Yeah, some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So one quick story about the point system, and you talked about Fummelmitz, and for those of you who don't know, my dad's name that I gave him, his nickname is Fummelmitz, and I nickname pretty much, if you're in my life, you pretty much have a nickname at one point or another. And so my dad actually did name himself Fummelmitz, but I ran with it, and he named himself that when I was a senior in high school, and I'm 45, so this name is stuck, let's just say that.
Wow.
So, okay, now he claims he didn't do this on purpose, but he did. So listen to this. We're doing our point system, and I was winning by about 30 points, and we were on the last hunt of the season, and it was a snow goose hunt. And snow geese were worth 10 each, and I'm up by like 30 or 40 or 50. I mean, I've got a pretty good margin on him, right? And so sometimes when we do snow goose hunts, we just stalk them and get them on the flush instead of putting out decoys, and I have a lot of fun doing it that way. Right. So it was just he and I, and we had probably 5,000 snow geese on this marsh that was ringed with cattails. And so he and I worked together, and we were crawling up through the cattails, and we were going to get as close to them as we could. And then either when they naturally flushed, if you're around snow geese at all other than field hunting, you'll know that they can't stay seated for more than 5 minutes without getting up and moving around. So we sneak in close to them, and then they naturally get up and move around. And when they do that, they come right over you, like, 20 yards over your head. And so our goal is to get up as close as possible, let him get up. And for some reason, he has this idea. He says, I'll tell you what, we're going to split up. You crawl around over there, and I'll stay here. And he had this big idea. So I'm okay, I'll crawl around over there in case, I don't remember what his reasoning was, but he had me convinced to do this, right? I'm crawling over there, not even set up yet. And I hear bang, bang, bang. And I look, and he's got 10 geese down on the water. And he won the contest he ended up retrieving 7 of them. 3 of them were lost. But he got 70 points on 3 shots, winning the contest for the year. And somehow he didn't do that on purpose.
He gave you the old man swindle.
Yeah. Typical dad move
sounds
right there. So.
Very typical.
Sounds like he won fair and square. I'm going to.
And I can tell you, that's the only time in my life I ever remember him suggesting us get up and separate like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly he had an agenda.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, so too. He executed it to perfection. I did not even fire my gun.
That's great.
I can just imagine him standing in the cattails, just fist pumping as you're crawling around. He's got all 10 down.
He's a great guy, At the age 75, he still gets out there and busts his butt. He's got a pacemaker. He's 75, and he's out there with us just crushing it. So, man, he's something else.
You said he has a pacemaker. I know that every waiter I've bought in the last 2 or 3 years has been like, don't wear this waiter with a pacemaker. Does he have to think about that with the little magnets that on the pockets?
I've never seen that or thought about it. I don't know. That's the first I've heard of that. I'll certainly look into it. Yeah,
like the Magellan ones, they've got little magnet pocket closers. That's just a little consideration, maybe a little safety tip.
So magnetic pockets, you have to be careful of with because I know he's got at least one shirt with a magnetic pocket.
I mean, that's what the old warning sticker said on it. So
I appreciate that. I'll definitely bring that up to him.
Yeah.
He's so into waterfowl hunting. He carries these little pills in his chest pocket, and everyone knows. All right, if I have a heart attack, pull these pills out. What a stud!
Man, I hope I'm kicking half as well as him at 75.
Me too.
Oh man. Okay, so how did the podcast, the Duck Gun podcast, get started?
So I guess that falls in my court. So I started it up in January of this year. At the time there wasn't a lot of people posting podcasts. Since then it's a big trend, and there's a lot of podcasts that have popped up, and a lot of people who've rejuvenated their podcasts, and and there's definitely some great content being pumped out. Yourself included in that. And but I just started the podcast, and Elliot was one of my premier guests that came on, and we had kind of chatted here and there, through the comments and emails from time to time. So we already had somewhat of a relationship. But after he was on as a guest twice, we decided to team up, and we just been cruising right along ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been such a great opportunity. Jordan contacted me during the year. I was already kind of watching his shows and knew he was, and he contacted me. I think he was intentionally kind of planting a seed, because he was like, "What would you think if we did something weekly? You and I." And I didn't really know him that well. And I'm like, I don't really know this guy very well. And I'm like, no, I don't know if I'm interested in that. And then he leads me to kind of just say, after I was on the podcast with him a couple times, I contacted him and I was like, "What would you think about us doing this together?" Of course, thinking it was my idea when it wasn't. It was his months before.
And I just tuned into you guys do some really cool stuff with the YouTube live broadcasting and stuff. That really is cool. Like, I think I popped in earlier when I was making dinner, just kind of gauge when you guys were going to be done, and saw you had pulled up like a live poll that was animated, and you guys are really doing some stuff that I didn't even know that stuff existed. So
yeah, it's just kind of, I've been tinkering around with that, and that's actually the first week we've done that. And like the way like you can do with YouTube, the better you can have like more interactive content with the live viewers, the more likely they are to stick around. So if they don't have something that's engaging, it's obviously it's engaging when you're talking, but it's more so when you can get their involvement, like with voting in a pool and seeing that live stuff. And so that's actually the first week we tried that, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. There's tons and tons of stuff. Like, one goal I would have for like the YouTube side of stuff would be to get it kind of close to, the best you can for like a YouTube live show, opposed to just recording our podcast live. Kind of integrate some stuff in there that would, hopefully give that kind of feel to the viewers.
Right.
Yeah, I've never thought about that before. Like you said, you got to keep people interacting on the live. Obviously, your episodes still get posted on iTunes and whatever sites you use eventually, but during the actual podcast, props to you guys for utilizing all those tools and keeping people sucked in to the live show.
Yeah, and you guys are brave, too, because I have to do quite a bit of editing until I'm feeling confident enough to put this out on the old interwebs and whatnot, so...
Yeah, with us it's kind of you get what you see, and with our videos we're not ashamed to show like what we got, and you get the bad. That's all I'll say.
And I will say, recording anything, whether it's video or audio, it takes getting used to, and especially putting your face in front of a camera. It's just something that you just have to kind of warm up to, because it can be a little overwhelming at first.
Yeah, even if you stumble a little bit, though, I think that's the whole, FDH and Duck Gun Chronicles image, is it's that raw, natural footage, and I think people love that. Obviously, that's, what you guys' thing is.
So.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I know that, speaking for myself personally, my goal is to allow the viewer to feel like they were with us on the hunt, and they know each person that's in that shows up on the hunts, and that at the end of the video they're like, I know what it felt like to be on that hunt. I can imagine it. It seems like how it is with me and my friends to really, really connect to not just the atmosphere, but all of the FDH crew. as well.
I would say you guys are definitely successful with that, whether it's Golden Boy bringing a creepy baby or Danny throwing a shotgun shell in a fire. It really does come home and it does relate, and so I think you're doing a good job and it's definitely working.
I appreciate that, because that is the ultimate. I'm never going to do the cinematic things. Like Jordan is way more skilled at me than doing the cinematic things, and I'm just, that's not my thing. And I can't, you got to be true to who you are. And I think who I am with freelance duck hunting is just real. If we screw up, you're going to see it. If we don't shoot any ducks, you're going to see it. If someone do something stupid, you're going to see it. It's just, I'm just going to be real and let you come with us and see what we do. And that's just the goal. I
like both. I like real, raw, and then I like dramatic and cinematic too. It's fun what you can, I like the contrast in your guys' YouTube channels.
Yeah, and I kind of attempt to do, a little bit of both. I try to get the raw and the real and stuff, and I probably don't do it as well as Elliot. He's really good at the storytelling and, going along those lines and making you feel like you're on the hunt. But then I give it a touch of that cinematic. Usually I try to do some B-roll in the beginning or front. And, I'm nowhere near as good as somebody like Ben Potter, who's filming, the sick, linguist films and stuff like that. And, I really have kind of fallen in love with that B-roll kind of shot. I just love to do it. And it kind of, I've already said this once tonight, but it just really does duck hunting justice. And I'm really passionate about duck hunting and really love all the things we get to see when we go out there. And it's so hard to describe that. And if you can show that in video, that's kind of, I like to have a portion of my video show that.
Now, Jordan is a really humble guy. And I will say this about Jordan. He's only been really filming his second season now, and really trying to produce videos like this is new to him. But if you see what he's got going on, and I bet you if we were to fast forward to 2, 3, 4 years down the road, he's going to be cranking out some really, really high-end cinematic stuff, just from what I've seen personally of his skill sets. So,
oh wow, yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty great. That.
Yes. Oh, look at that. The old co-host back pat right there for you, Jordan. Hey, Tegan, come on, man. Look at that.
Good job, Ben.
No, so one thing, last year was my first season of trying to capture my hunts on film. And that's kind of the reason we're doing this episode is because I think I did an okay job, but I didn't get everything that I wanted to, and I focused a lot more on kill shots and some of the funnier things. But I don't know if I think Elliot, you saw my last highlight video. I usually just take all my video clips and send them to Matt over at High Prairie Sportsman because he's a good friend of mine from college, and I let him do all my video editing and whatnot. But all the stuff that he didn't use or ended up at the end of the year, I kind of just threw into a highlight video for the season. But it kind of got to the point where everybody enjoyed the videos so much, hooking them up onto my big screen after the hunt, that everyone would hang around at my house for an hour and a half, and while I pull them off, and we would review them and watch them. And it got to the point where it's kind of if it didn't happen on camera, did it matter? And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it did get fun, and it added another element to hunting and setting up and that whole, nature.
Well, you're tapping into the emotions, especially when you've been on the hunt, and then you watch a form of it on video. You can feel the emotions and relive them in a way you cannot just strictly with your memory. And that's what's so enjoyable about watching your own personal hunts.
When you guys first started videoing, any of you three, did you ever go back and watch the footage and you're like, wow, that's not how I remembered it, just because you weren't very talented at it yet?
Have you ever had a time where you're on a hunt and two people shoot their guns and both people claim the bird? Well, that's one thing that you can always go back and check from the video. And it depends. Yeah. It depends on what kind of camera you have, what camera angle, but especially if you have a GoPro on your head, which not the best footage, but it definitely can confirm whose bird it was.
Yeah, I guess I will second that.
Yeah, twice now Aiden's claimed he's shot something, and I'm 2 for 2. Let's just say that. You can slow it down to the moment you hear the crack of that gun. And unless they're right together at the same moment, which they are, you can tell.
Yeah.
Throwing Golden Boy under the bus. That's
right. Hey, I'll tell you, he outshines me. He outshines me in almost every other life aspect. So I got to get him where I can.
Okay, so equipment. What'd you guys start off with? What'd you evolve to?
You go ahead with this one, Elliot.
Okay, so I had the JVC Evero, which is about a $200 camera. My father-in-law gave it to me, and after about 3, 4, 5 hunts, when I started realizing that people were watching it, I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't ready to put the gun down at all yet. So then I'm like, okay, I need to get a GoPro and put it on my head. Well, I did a bunch of research, and I thought I was getting a decent off-brand action camera, and it ended up that action camera was just god awful. So I didn't hardly get any footage with that. So season 1, I had the JVC Evero. So after that season, I stored up some money, and season 2, I had a Panasonic HCV 770, which is about a $600 camera. Did tons and tons of research, and was just going for higher quality video camera, just video quality. And all season 2, that's pretty much all I used. I was still trying to use that off-brand action camera and failing miserable with it. So we started taking turns where if we had 3 or 4 people, with the addition of Dan hunting a lot, and then we actually met Golden Boy in the woods that season, and him starting to hunt, we would have more groups of 3 or 4 people, so we would just take turns and try to get kill shots with the Panasonic. Then season 3, still had the Panasonic, but then purchased a GoPro Hero 4 Silver and started finally figuring out how to use an action camera, putting it in the decoys. And so all of season 3 are the combination of those two. And there's a big upgrade in the number of kill shots, which I don't think that kill shots are the end all be all. In fact, my videos, I kind of try to, we started from inside out, where most people go out and just try to get kill shots. I was going out and not trying to get kill shots, and kill shots came secondary. But season 3, I think it really kind of started to fall together with me being able to get at least 3 or 4 kill shots an episode. And then recently, so now for season 4, I still have the Panasonic, I still have the GoPro, and I picked up a Canon Vixia I can't remember, I always forget, it's like a G7 or G40. It's about a $900 camera. So now what we're going to have is the Panasonic's going to hang around my neck, the GoPro is going to be out in the decoys, and then the Canon, I've got a stabilizer that you can kind of shoulder it, and whoever is getting the kill shots will do that with the Canon. So now we're running 3 cameras. So that's where we're at right now.
That's a pretty diverse setup you got there currently. I think it's really cool you were saying like your kill shots aren't your main goal, and I think it's awesome how you guys work as a team and like your teamwork in some of your videos, whether it's Golden Boy or Fumble Mitts or Danny, whoever it is. I've noticed that a lot in your YouTube videos, how you guys take turns, one shooting with the camera, one with the gun, and some of those videos you can just tell the kill isn't what it is because you have one guy shooting and one guy filming, and some of those flocks you guys get coming in, I'm like, man, I think to myself sometimes, if both guys would have been shooting, holy cow, they would have limited out fast, but instead you were focused on the good content for your audience, which is, selfless.
Yeah, well, and I've been going at this for 25 plus years now, so it's all a progression of where you're at in your stages, and I've killed enough ducks at this point that if I'm not the one pulling the trigger, it doesn't matter to me near as much as it would have 15, 20 years ago. So, and I'll tell you, using the camera and getting good footage with it when a flock comes in is actually way more fun than people realize it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Jordan, what kind of cameras are you running?
Well, kind of step back before we go to the cameras. So, to kind of
are you trying to get me back for the lightning round?
No. So kind of looking at the YouTube scene, this is going to lead into the cameras, I promise. But looking at the YouTube scene, kind of Elliot was a pioneer in that as far as like the duck hunting goes, because like prior to what would you say, like 3-4 years ago, the majority of videos on there were, highly produced, like fouled reality type stuff. And then everything else was rock music and kill shot montages. And then along comes the vlog style, which, as far as I know, Elliot was kind of one of the first people to do that. And that kind of got popularized by him and a couple others, I would say. And that's where I came in. Yeah, Outdoor Limits, probably Bobby Guy Films as well. And that's the people that kind of come to mind. And if I'm forgetting somebody else on YouTube that started around that same time, I'm sorry, but that's the people I knew of. So that's kind of what I looked at when I was deciding to start the hunting YouTube deal. And, so that's kind of where I wanted to be with my gear in mind. So I got an action cam, and, going into it low budget, I honestly just used my smartphone. So if you go look at my first videos, I'd set up my smartphone on a tripod, which it was a Google, or not a Google. Why did I say Google? An iPhone 6 Plus, not waterproof. And I'd set it up on, a tripod behind where I was hunting to try to get the big shot of me. And then usually it would miss the birds, but sometimes it'd be in frame. And then I'd wear a GoPro on my head. And I had the same GoPro as Elliot. And like you said, it was terrible. And it got terrible image in low light. It came with a waterproof case, and it didn't fit in the waterproof case. So it would bounce around. So if you used it for the audio, all you'd hear was the camera going hitting the sides of this waterproof case. So it was just terrible. I ended up taking foam pieces and stuffing them in there to keep it from rattling. But that was a $40 little action cam and using the smartphone. And I did that for the whole first season that I hunted. And, then I upgraded to a better off-brand. I can't remember the name. They're Japanese names. It's something not easy to remember, like GoPro. So some budget off-brand GoPros. Had a couple of those, and I had still had my smartphone, but I also upgraded to a Panasonic G7, which has been kind of the backbone of my content. You can use it for the vlog style. Talking to the camera. You can use it, switch out lenses on it. So I'll use just a standard lens, and then I switch to a 50 millimeter lens, and you get that, really good depth of field, or shallow depth of field would be the way to describe it. And so you kind of get, if you don't know what that is, it's where one thing is in focus, and then very quickly the things behind it are out of focus. And so it really gives you that cinematic look. If you look at B-roll in my videos and the slow motion shots, I'm using a 50 millimeter lens to get all that. And it really kind of brings attention to one specific object as you're scanning through the shot. So got the Panasonic G7 for that. And then for the next year, I've upgraded to having a GoPro 5, Hero 5, which really, really, really good quality. Almost as good as the 6. But at almost half the price. So you're not getting it's kind of you're going to the point of diminishing returns if you're looking at a 6 to 5. The GoPro 6 is slightly better. I think you get a higher resolution at the 120 frames, which I'm not going to be using GoPro for slow motion shots. I got my other cameras for that kind of stuff. And then the last edition I got to kind of help with the kill shots, because I really don't focus on the kill shots as well, just because about 50% of my hunts are solo hunts. The other 50 I'll join up with my regular group, but they're going on a lot of weekends. A lot of times I'm hunting before work, so if I'm going solo, I don't have the option to have a camera guy or be too concerned about the kill shots, which honestly doesn't make up that big of a difference in the actual footage. So, but this year I'm going to add a Tacticam, which you can mount it on your barrel. So hopefully that'll fill in some of the kill shots for my content. So the biggest thing I think for the way I got it is I'll just set the GoPro behind me. It's not actually going to be in my head. And the reason you set it behind you is you have a huge angle. It has a wide angle, so you get a lot of what's going on. You'll be able to see the birds. They'll look small, but you'll be able to see yourself. And all these different cameras kind of help you tell they're a different tool to help tell your story.
Right. You kind of played into something I was going to ask you guys about. So what are the elements of a good video, what are some of the things that you know that you're going to shoot that day? You're kind of the backbone of the frame that you put together.
Jordan, you want me to take it or you want to go?
Sure, I'll go first on this one.
Okay. So I'm sure Jordan's way more organized about that. He tends to be a lot more intentional than my just hit record a bunch mentality.
Well, Elliot must, because when I started out, I was watching a lot of Elliot's stuff. So I pretty much just templated what Elliot did and copied it. No, just kidding. But so yeah, for me, I try to just take them along the hunt, in the order that I go. And usually I have like a segment the night before where I'm like packing up my stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, going on a hunt in the morning. This is where I'm going. This is my plan. Here's the gear I got. And then see you guys in the morning. And then from there, a lot of times it's hard to get some of those dark shots or you're rushing. So usually I don't do as good as getting that. But you want to have like every kind of element of the hunt so they can see the progression of what's going on. So they feel like, there's not a disconnect. Because all of a sudden you're in the blind. They're like, whoa. Or like all of a sudden like something happens. You at least have to explain it. Because once people become disconnected from the story, it's like if you had missing pages in a book. It would just be really hard to be interested in something if you can't follow it. So I guess that's the progression I have. Get out there and set up your cameras for the hunt, and then anytime anything happens, you vlog it. And if I don't get it, which I do a bad job about this a lot of times, and I'll use voiceover a lot to kind of help tell the story. I'm big into telling the story, like trying to, have people feel like they know what's going on in the story. Yeah.
I know one thing that, Matt, High Prairie Sportsman Matt, he would every night he'd text me and he would, like, before we were going to go out on a hunt, because he's up in Nebraska, I'm down in Oklahoma, he'd be like, now, Ben, I need a picture of you in the truck or setting up something. And I got you, man. I got you. And then, next thing I know, the decoys are all out and blinds are set and brushed. And someone is like, hey, weren't you supposed to take an intro film or something like that? Oh, dang it.
Yeah. You've got to be really diligent. I'll tell you, taking camera equipment with you on every single hunt, you have to really be into it, because there are times in which you just get tired. I mean, when you're out on a duck hunt and you're physically exhausted and things aren't really going well. I mean, there's times just like you do not feel like recording anything. I just want to sit. I don't feel like doing it. And it takes a lot of persistence to, and if I'm being honest, there's days where I just haven't had that good of a video just because I'm like, I'm tired. I don't feel like videoing. I don't have to video every second. I start this line of mumbling about it, but it just takes a lot of persistence. With me, the game changer for me was wearing the camera around my neck, because it's small enough, my Panasonic, that I can wear it even when I'm shooting, and it just fits right down, right on my chest. But I can get that thing up and recording in a matter of 10 to 15 seconds at the most. So what that allows me, anything that I find interesting at that moment, I can have it up and I can have it on, whether that's a conversation, whether that's a pelican flying by, whether I see something interesting. So I don't like storyboard to where I don't have to get a setting up every time. If I feel like it, I will. If I think it's interesting, as well. I don't time lapse every. If there's lots of good cloud cover and it's moving around, then I'll do that. But it's like I don't really storyboard. It's more at the moment. If I find it interesting, I can have the camera up and on so fast that I can get it. And then also I try any emotions that I'm feeling, I try to explain and express. So I'm guarantee you I'm not as organized as Jordan or Matt is, but having that camera up and on in just a matter of seconds gives me the ability to just kind of go as I find things interesting.
Yeah, that's a great tool to have, because I always, with the GoPro, hey, can you see the numbers? Are the numbers going, man? Yeah, man. Yeah, it's recording. Okay, sounds good. That's how every single one of my videos starts.
Yeah. I think people make a big mistake when they go out and spend $350 for a GoPro, and that is their only tool for recording a hunt. I think people would be much, much better off to go out and buy a $250 Sony or Panasonic Handycam and have that around their necks and be willing to put the gun down every night. You only need, a few kill shots an episode. So if you're out with 3 guys and you shoot 10 ducks, if you get 3 of those ducks getting shot and then you're just given the conversation, that is so much more to me an interesting episode than seeing someone with a GoPro on their head where it's shaky, the audio's poor, the ducks look like ants. And I think that a lot of guys make the mistake in rushing out and getting a GoPro instead of getting the same price for a Star Cam.
And like Jordan was saying with the, when I got this iPhone 7 Plus, this thing is like, it's an iPad essentially. I would just take one of my old blind bags and I'd put it about 20 or 30 yards behind our layout blinds, and I'd sandwich a couple hand warmers in between it to keep it warm, and I'd just let it roll the whole hunt and then go back and find all the I can't believe how good some of that video footage is. I would say that's about 70% of my footage.
So let me ask you a question. That video that was on Facebook today on your Facebook channel of your hunt where you shot I think a couple of doubles, and that was what was that filmed with? Was that your phone?
If you saw me popping up out of the blind and like my head moving, it was a GoPro Hero Silver, Hero 4 Silver,
Okay.
And then if you can see me in my whole blind, it's my iPhone 7 Plus.
Okay.
7 Plus, yeah.
And I actually use the 7 Plus a lot myself. I have the same phone, and like he's saying, like I even say, like if you have a good smartphone, I wouldn't even spend the money, on another camera. Like just starting off, you don't need it. Just use your smartphone. The money you should be putting into is getting one of those flexible mounts and a smartphone attachment, and you can just put it on that mount, let it run. And it works perfect. You can use it for the vlogging of the hunt, like talking about what's going on. You can set it up behind you. And even getting a cheaper GoPro can help with the shots of you in the blind. Like all you need is really 2 cameras to make a really good YouTube video.
And you're talking about mounts and stuff. I think most of my mounts with mine were, I usually lost my coffee mug in one of my gloves because I'd like position the phone on I'd set my coffee mug out like way behind our blind and like have the glove hold it into like the right position. So
I
would say mounts are critical.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty cheap. You can get like one of the cheap like flexible mounts for like $15, and then a smartphone attachment like 10. So you're talking like $25. You already have a phone. You just hook it on there. And then, the other thing you can do is get one of those external chargers. And once you have a charger with your iPhone cord, that thing will run for 3-4 hours. As long as you have the storage.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that, because one of the questions I wanted to ask at some point in time tonight was how the battery storage is on those GoPros, because I've never filmed a hunt before, but I've heard that can be a huge pain, especially in the cold weather, that they don't really last very long.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do for it. The same thing with the Heroes 5 and 6, those are waterproof. So it's kind of best to leave them as waterproof, which the batteries last in those about an hour and 15 minutes, which, like, if you're not paying attention, you can miss some footage if you don't switch out the batteries. So the way to combat that is it's a separate company from GoPro. They make an external battery for the GoPro and a waterproof case that's similar to like the ones you'd have for like the Hero 3 before they were completely waterproof. But it's extended, so it looks like it's the size of 2 GoPros with an extended battery, and that'll last like 3-4 hours. But if you don't have one of those, you're not worried about it being waterproof. You can use the same external chargers you use for like an iPhone, and you can plug the port that you'd normally charge your GoPro in your house. You just plug that into the external charger, take it with you, and then again, you're lasting 3-4 hours with that.
Yeah, you pretty much have to have an external battery, because I didn't for the first half of the season last season. And when you know it only has like an hour, all you're doing is constantly monitoring the batteries. And I had like 6 batteries, and you're just constantly monitoring the batteries, and that is that'll just wreck your hunt to be doing that. But if you know it's good for 3-4 hours, like I've got 2 external batteries, and for the cold weather, I wrap them in those sticky foot warmers, kind of like what you were saying.
Oh, yeah.
Ben, they have the foot warmers that actually have adhesive on them.
Yeah.
And if you wrap
I have
battery in
tons of
those, and I never had, only one hunt did I have problems with the GoPro at all. But to run a GoPro without external batteries is that's asking too much of someone on a hunt.
Not to mention the worst part of that for me, even like beyond like checking in the hunt, is like I would have like this massive setup to charge GoPro batteries, like 6. You have to have like 3 charging stations, all with 2 batteries on. You're doing it the night before. It's just like a mess.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Battery recharging is still, it's like I've got batteries basically charging right now. It's just with 3 cameras, it's just a never ending mess of making sure your batteries are charged.
Yeah. I have 2 power strips all loaded up with chargers for all the stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. So
but in the end, you're just little boys with toys. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah. It's still fun because you know what it's about.
Yeah.
So yeah, you start off and you tell your wife, you're like, oh, I'm getting into duck hunting. Oh, okay. Gotta buy some decoys. Oh, gotta buy a blind. Oh, gotta buy a camera. Oh, now I gotta buy a bunch of podcasting stuff. Oh, like when does it end, Ben?
Yeah, if you create content aside from duck hunting, it literally doubles your budget. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I think I already blew through my hunting budget. I have maybe like $500 left for dive bomb decoys, but that's it. I'm done. Like I don't even know if I got gas money to get down to Tagan's.
I know I've got a crowdfunding that I use called Patreon. Some people might be familiar with it, and I don't push it that hard, but I do bring it up and talk about it. And it's like every now and then people leave comment on the videos. You're always pushing that like I'm some kind of bum. I'm like, man, you don't know how expensive this is. It's not like I'm making a bunch of money here. If some people want to fund me a little bit, that's okay. I'm not like pushing it down people's throats. It's expensive.
Huge props to both you guys for being brave enough to have YouTube channels, because I read some of the comments on some of you guys' hunts, and I'm like, wow, these guys, there's some hard critics out there.
What's up with YouTube comments? I don't. What is that?
Yeah, yeah.
I
got
used
one
to delete
yesterday.
them all, but since I just leave them now. If you say something mean, I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. Anyways, go ahead, Elliot. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
At first, those really bothered me because, and I heard you talk about, I think I listened to a podcast of yours, Ben. I can't remember which one it was, but you were talking about how we all want to feel competent. It goes into our self-image. We do this, we love it. We want to feel competent. And when you're out there releasing videos and people are criticizing, literally people will criticize anything that you do. I mean, any little thing. Someone criticized Golden Boy on the survival hunt video today because he threw a rock and didn't make it to the water. I mean, unbelievable. And the guy was nice about it, but still, he took time to criticize him about that. And at first, it was a little bit bothersome because every little shot in the back of your head is like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. But then after a while, it kind of becomes background noise. And my wife kind of helped me realize this. When you have a YouTube channel, you really want to polarize people one direction or the other. You don't want people bored in the middle. So you either want people to love you, or I don't want to say hate you, or your content needs to make them feel something emotional. And if it's not making them happy, it needs to turn them the other way. You don't want people to be bored. So if you're not getting troll kinds of comments, chances are you're probably not getting very many views. I had someone troll comment me over at the grind just the other day. I left a comment. My comment was like, all right, man, glad to see these videos coming up. And someone starts bashing me over on the grind, and I'm just like, okay, man, thanks. I appreciate the feedback, but it becomes not a big issue after a while. But at first, it was a little bothersome.
Hey, so if you ever wonder why, if you ever wonder why Elliot water swats every single duck, it's because he wants people to feel something.
Yeah.
Hey,
the people moving.
Elliot, the way you handle those comments, though, I think it says a lot about you and what FDH is, because if you wanted to on that grind comment, you could have said, oh yeah, well, who has more followers? Or even on the comments on your channel, you could say, oh yeah, well, X, Y, and Z this, but you don't, because it's, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I very much try. What I want to do is be as kind and personable as possible. Now, there have been, I'm all about being real, so I'm going to be real. There's been about 5 times I have left a really harsh comment and given it about 10 minutes for the person to see it, then delete it. But because at some point it really gets old, But for the most part, I really want to present us in a real kind, friendly, personable way and thick skin. No, if you're defensive, there's never a worse look than being defensive about comments, I don't think.
Yeah, and very rarely in real life do I ever just walk up to somebody and berate them. So I don't understand the need for it, online. But also, that's another thing too. We're out here pushing content, and I think I'm a little bit more protected because I don't put my, you don't see me and all this other stuff, and you put yourself out there, and you can kind of just expect that you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have haters, and you're going to have people that really appreciate what you do, and I guess just got to focus on the positive.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was really hard for me is my season 1 and season 2 were our worst, numbers-wise, our worst waterfowl seasons probably in the last 25 years. The season 1, we didn't do very well. Season 2, I got skunked on 45% of our hunts, which my average is like 12% during the year. And I mean, it was colossally bad years, those 2 years. So after year 2, I mean, we basically were essentially kind of looking incompetent because we just weren't shooting any ducks. And I knew that that's not us. I know we shoot ducks. We always have, but that was really starting to get to me. Just the lack of success, and every single episode just showing us struggling to scratch out a few birds. That was a test. That was a trial, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's you get followers doing that, then imagine, the boom years coming up, right? So.
Yeah. So we had a great year, season 3. In fact, that was my best personal year ever. So that was like, oh my gosh, that made that success so sweet. I can tell you, for me personally.
Tegan, did you get to season 3 when you came over here and were doing laundry?
Well, I'm trying to remember, Elliot, this past season, what was this for you? Was this 4?
3.
That was 3. Okay, then yeah, that was. Okay. We watched all of those. Yeah.
Tegan was over here for like 8 hours doing laundry because his dryer broke. So
that's one with all those ones that are Golden Boy in. We met Golden Boy in season 2, and then he's in almost every single episode in season 3.
Yep.
What were you saying, Jordan?
I'm trying to think. Oh, kind of going back to those comments. I actually had a guy, and he went off on me, and he was saying, like, why don't you hunt the geese? Like, he said it in a really weird way, and I didn't understand what he meant. He's like, why don't you hunt the geese in the field like a real hunter? Like if you're hunting geese over the water, because pretty much he was saying, like, I was destroying the chances of field hunters by hunting in the river. And he just went off. I'm like, what are you even talking about? There's some people that just, and that, I guess that's not even like a rare occurrence. Like, there's a lot of people who believe like field hunting is the only way to do it for geese, which I was definitely surprised to hear that.
Yeah, hardcore goose field hunters, they believe that. I got berated. Mine was maybe the same guy. I got absolutely berated by a guy for that same issue. And there is a group of people that believe that you should not hunt a roost on a river of geese or anything. That's not that uncommon of a belief.
But it's not even a roost, though. It's kind of weird when they call you out on it. But, like, I mean, I can understand, like, not hunting a roost because you ruin the area for everybody. But if it's just hunting the river and geese fly up and down the river all day, then they go out to fields and they come back to, loaf, and then they go back to field. I mean, you're just hunting. Yeah. You're literally waterfowl.
Of privilege and opportunity comes bias and opinion. So
yeah. Well, ours definitely are the roost. We are intentionally hunting the roost. What people don't know is on this river section, you've got a roost about every mile to 2 miles. When we're doing that, these roosts are littered up and down the river. So when we're kicking birds off, we're not kicking them off the river. Now, maybe they may not go to your same field, but I love hunting the river. And I personally am not a huge fan of hunting fields because they're man-made inventions. Well, inventions isn't the right word. They're man-made, and you don't get the wildlife experience in a field that you do in the river. You don't see river otters. You don't see belted kingfishers. You don't see as many eagles. Now, I do like field hunting, and I would do it, but to say I have to hunt in a field and I'm not allowed to hunt in the river, or I'm not a real hunter, that is textbook elitist thought process. Yeah,
definitely elitist. It's like the puritanical waterfowlers. And, Elliot, I'm not sure where you hunt exactly. Obviously, I wouldn't want you to release that. But, some of the videos I've seen of yours, they look very similar to some of the rivers I also hunt around my hometown. And I've dealt with that before, too. People saying, stop shooting those birds on the river. And surprisingly, it's some older gentleman that I've heard it from. And you're exactly right when you say some of these rivers around here, like the roost can change day to day. I mean, they take that thing like a highway. So that's kind of a load of bull to me.
Yeah, well, me too. And the thing that I tried to explain to this guy, because I did engage with the guy, is I said, I've got a 9 to 5 during the week. I can't scout. Literally, it gets dark at 5:30. I can't scout. There's no scouting that can take place. Now, I might be able to get my dad to get out one afternoon and kind of look up and down the river. But to field hunt, it's like you've got to pattern them and watch them. It's like a whole thing. And if you don't have that time, but you can go out and find where they're at on the river, there's no way that we could even do it the quote unquote real way based on having a 9 to 5 job.
You talk about 9 to 5 jobs, and I can't remember whose Facebook I was on earlier, but it was someone saying, it's the darn weekend warriors. And I got to, another guy commented, and he said, hey, yeah, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm tracking that. I work a 9 to 5, and basically what it came down to is like, I am hardcore. Like, it does not matter that I only get to hunt one day out of the week due to my family obligations or my work schedule. He goes, but, do not get it wrong. I live, breathe, and I eat waterfowl. I'm thinking about it 24/7 during the season, and my heart aches. And so I make the best of every opportunity I can afield. And
there are very few hunters that get to go out more than 30 times a year. And I've noticed the guys that go out 45, 50, 60 times, that mentality does kind of slip into them. Some of them, not all of them. You can never generalize. But the mentality of, we're the real hunters. We know more than you. You're just a weekend warrior. When, I'm just trying to support my family and live life best I can. And if I could go out 60 times a year, I would. I'm not rich. I can't. I actually have to do what most
that darn do. Family.
Yeah.
Wanting food and money. Darn it.
And love and attention.
Yeah. Well, man, and also, as a big conservationist, if we only relied on the guys that could afford to hunt 3 and 4 days a week, there would not be enough duck stamps sold.
Yep.
And then even past that, too, is you talk about maybe the guy that only goes out once a month, or the guy that thinks...
Only teal opener.
Or just goes out on the openings. Those people are extremely important to conservation.
The average in our state is 5 times a year a hunter goes out. A waterfowl hunter. That's the average. 5 times a year.
Yeah.
State statistics.
Right.
Well, hey, I got one question for you guys talking about these comments, but also, rolling back into the filming tips. One thing I see in a lot of YouTube video comments is people saying that people are sky busting and those shots are so far away. And I don't think they realize, maybe you guys can touch on this, how like GoPro specifically kind of altered the image of the hunt.
Jordan?
Yeah, so I guess with the GoPro, especially with the older ones, they have the fisheye, and that widens your how would I say it? Would it be focal length? And if there's some good examples of this on the internet, and you can see like when they change which millimeter lens they're using, it kind of shows like it makes the distance or the perspective of the distance from one individual to another look further away, and it really like kind of distorts perception. So I I wish I could remember like what the example was called, but I mean, you can see it where they shift through it. It's the same, like one person standing there and they shift through all the lenses and all the millimeter lengths, and it shows like, and if you have like a tree next to them, the wider the angle of the lens, the further that actually looks like it is away from them. And then the narrower that is, it kind of brings it in. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but I'm sure some people know what I'm talking about. And then with the GoPro, the reason they have it wide, it's action cam trying to get everything. And so it does make your ducks kind of look like ants, even though you're taking like an ethical 30-yard shot. It might look like this duck is really tiny way out there. And so if you're just having a GoPro image, it does look like people are sky busting when indeed they're not.
Yeah, the best way to tell on a GoPro if they're sky busting is count the seconds until it hits the water. And if it's not dropping down that far to hit the water, it's not a sky bust. I've got a playlist on my YouTube channel of just mallard hunts. And if you go in there, a lot of those hunts, the same shot, you'll see it on my Panasonic and with the GoPro. And you'll see it like right after another. So you'll do the Panasonic and then the GoPro on some of those, and you can see the difference because you'll have a duck come. I put my GoPro as close to the decoys as I can to eliminate that as much as possible. But I'll have a duck land literally on top of the GoPro, like 10 yards, and it'll look all of 25 yards when you look at the footage.
Yeah, it's crazy how much that footage can manipulate the distance and the depth perception. Do you guys ever have to change up like the way you hunt? Like, do you feel like video in your hunts maybe makes you decoy birds better or takes more ethical and closer shots, or do you maybe manipulate where the camera's at?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Elliot.
All right. My dad is the most fanatic hunter I've ever met about taking close shots. And he has just instilled it in me from the time we started duck hunting that our shot selection, honestly, is probably tilted to the far extreme of the shots that we take, because everyone that we hunt with wants to take shots we don't take, and they're not sky busting. So for us, and we just almost never pull the trigger at 40-yard shots on the first shot. Sometimes you get them that far on the second or third, so it sets up pretty well for filming. So we don't ever change anything just because my dad has just ingrained that so deeply in me to get those close shots.
Yeah, I guess for me, along those lines, I really haven't changed up what I would do, I guess, if I wasn't filming. But yeah, and as far as manipulating the cameras, like sometimes it's just, I always try to line it up just to get the shot, like it kind of, to get the bird in the shot. If you kind of know where they're coming, but you can't really do anything. You can't change the settings on the GoPro. They have a setting for linear, I think linear, medium, and wide. And each one of those settings kind of adjusts the perception of the depth, where if you're medium, it doesn't look like they're as far away. But if it's wide, then they look like ants flying through the sky.
Is that what you use, Jordan, as medium?
Honestly, I've switched between it. It depends what my goal is on that hunt. Like if I don't know where the birds are going to be coming from, I'll just go with wide. Just because I'd rather have the birds in the shot, even if they look small. I'm not necessarily super concerned about the kill shot, but having it in there just helps tell the story, opposed to like me just standing up, because usually I have another camera for that's showing me standing up, kind of all facets of what's happening during the birds flying in. And if I do know where they're coming in, I can take that narrower approach by setting it on medium.
I've got to the point where I've got normally either I cut off a stick or I have one that I take with me and I put the GoPro actually in the water, and I've got it down to a point where I'm using medium on the settings, and I am missing very, very few birds being shot with, and it's close, and it looks close enough that I'm happy with the footage. Now, if they land in an unusual spot or a little bit farther to one side, sometimes then they look a little bit far away. But if you look at my GoPro footage, I think it's hard to do a whole lot better than that as far as is the shots that you're getting on them and not looking like ants, as long as you're shooting them in the pocket.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree.
I think one of the things I was going to ask you about was, what are your favorite types of shots? Or, you were talking to Ben Potter last week, And he was telling you how he goes out there and he's like, oh, I'm going to get this epic shot. He's got it in his head. Goes out there and either they fall short or they, extend beyond what he was, looking to do. Do you guys have any of those shots? Your dream shots?
Or
is that proprietary information?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. I'll say this: what I'm trying to do is what I want to do. Everything I'm doing in my videos, but I want to continue to improve the video quality of birds in flight and of the kill shots. And so my dream shot is having a good enough video camera that I can continue doing what I'm doing with the way I do it, but then the kill shots will look something more like what you'll see on Fouled Reality or The Grind, and just add that, not to make it a focal point, but to add that into what I'm doing. So my dream shot is just to have the proper cameras and equipment to get really good shots of birds in the air and of kill shots to be sprinkled into what I'm doing.
Right. My favorite shots are when you just see that bird kind of slipping in and they doing the left right final little adjustments, and then that's
where they go completely sideways.
Or cool. Turn upside down. Yeah.
It's so hard to get good quality video of that until your gear really. Until you step up your price range for your gear. It's so difficult holding the camera still without a shoulder mount with enough frames per second to fully get it right. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. And for me, I can't actually make that a focal point of mine. It can't be a staple of my show because of how frequently I'm by myself. So I just do the best to show kind of the solo version of it and being able to get everything in the frame. And then kind of my dream shot is just, I love the 50 millimeter. I love getting the cinematic B-roll shots of just the hunt, and just I'm kind of beating this into the ground saying it again, but doing duck hunting justice, because I think it's so cool what we go out there and do, and I love to show that. And people that don't duck hunt a lot of times can appreciate kind of the feel and atmosphere when you can show all the cinematic B-roll shots. Man, that does look cool. And, that's kind of my dream shot, and getting better at that. And, anytime I get done with a hunt, I'm doing that. If I have time, I'm doing that. And I love just being able to take that cinematic B-roll.
And Jordan's thumbnails, if you don't follow him on Instagram, his thumbnails and his pictures he gets with that setup are amazing. If you just look at the thumbnails for Duck Gun Podcast, the pictures he gets are just incredible with his setup.
Yeah. Jordan, I got to applaud you. You're out there. You say 50% of your hunts are just by yourself. And you're running a dog out of a canoe sometimes.
Yeah.
Running camera. You're taken as loco, my friend.
I love it. And honestly, I shouldn't say I'm solo because, like you said, I have a dog, and I don't know if I'd do it solo without my dog. Because anytime I can go solo, especially training a dog. I mean, he's 2 years old, going on 3, and if I get a chance to go, I'm going just so I can take my dog. And even if everybody else is like, no, I'm out, I'm like, well, I'm in, and so is my dog. We're going. And
sure.
And yeah, but it does even when I'm with groups. If you're the one that has to control a dog, control a camera, and hunt, that's when it can get a little, crazy.
That's a lot of stuff. Stuff you're bringing out too. So.
Hey, Elliot, you said that Jordan uses some of those pictures for the thumbnail pictures, and that's one thing I wanted to ask is, have you guys ever just caught some crazy shots from some still frame footage? Even though you're videoing hunts, maybe some people realize this, maybe they don't. You can also maybe get some awesome, the Instagram-esque photos from videoing your hunts too.
Yeah, the problem with the cameras that I use is that traditionally, and I do a lot of screenshots off of my videos for thumbnails, and they're good for thumbnails. Thumbnails are small and the resolution doesn't have to be that great. But when you go and putting some of that stuff on Instagram, which I do, but when you go and putting some of that on Instagram and you look at a picture Jordan's taken with his setup with his 50 millimeter lens, and then you put it side by side on a Handycam, even a $500, $600, $700 handheld, and you look at the image quality between those two, it's going to be drastically reduced on screenshots.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but I do
millimeter is
that.
like magic.
Yeah.
if you're going to get a DSLR and a 50 millimeter lens, it really is like magic for photography.
And we should probably say Jordan films with a DSLR, and I film with your handheld camera, and those are drastically different in certain areas, and still shots is definitely one of those areas, and you see that come out in what we do.
Right.
Did I answer your question? Did I answer your question fully?
Yeah, you did. It was actually to my surprise. I figured maybe you'd be able to get some awesome screenshots, but maybe not.
Well, I do get screenshots I really like, and I use them for a lot of thumbnails. It's just my handheld cameras are not high quality enough that it doesn't, the single frames don't sometimes hold the clarity as like a DSLR individual snapshot would.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense. You're shooting moving targets with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I get some awesome stills though with my DSLR.
Getting a duck moving or something and getting a still from that with the gear I have, if it's not stationary, it's not going to look high quality. No way.
All right, here's going to be the tough moment here for you, Jordan. What is your favorite video that you've done? And then, what is your favorite video of Elliot's?
Okay, we'll start with mine, and I think there's a lot that I really like of mine. It sounds kind of like it sounds kind of weird. Oh, I love all my videos, but
I'm the best.
Yeah, no, it's just like really because you get to relive the memory. It's not that I'm the best and honestly, one of my favorite videos, and it kind of goes back to like having like the feel and the cinematic B-roll. Like I got 0 kill shots on this film, and I took my younger sister out. She has to go duck hunting with me this year.
Is this the Christmas one?
Yeah, and she was home for Christmas, and so just like getting to relive that memory. And we had a fun time. I got to pester her for she was late. She slept through her alarm, and she didn't show up on time. We had a huge snowstorm. She didn't have waders, so I had to canoe her around to get to our spot instead of being able to walk out. And then, we get there and honestly, I missed a ton of the footage because of us being late, but it's just like a great memory. And we get there and there's just mallards literally flying right. We're coming up this creek to our setup, the place we're going to set up. And we have 60 mallards buzz over our head. We have mallards coming in from the other side. There's just ducks everywhere. So I'm I parked the canoe and I'm we'll stay here, and telling her to sit over here. And I creep up the side of the bank, where all the mallards are, and they flush up. And I had 3 shells in my gun and 3 shells in my pocket. And I shoot my first 3. Unfortunately, early morning jitters, I missed the first 2 shots, hit the third, and then I load up again, and the birds are just circling everywhere. And I knocked down 2 more. But yeah, it was just awesome, that hunt, to be out there, and then to remember that memory, taking my little sister out for her first experience duck hunting, even though she didn't have a license. She just got to watch. But yeah, I'd say that's my favorite. And just, I love the B-roll on that one too. You're just being able to relive that memory. And as far as Elliot's, let's see, that's a little bit harder because I don't have Elliot's memorized the same as I have, my own.
Yeah, it's hard.
But the overall feel, I love when you see the whole FDH crew kind of giving everybody a hard time. And I can remember one video, where Elliot's out there and Dan actually takes the boat the wrong way, and you're just getting a kick out of it. And he's filming Dan just went down the river hundreds of yards the wrong way. I don't know how you can do this. He went from the boat launch, and
yeah.
Just getting to they get to the thing I enjoy about Elliot's videos is he brings you on the story and you're laughing because you're kind of you feel like you're part of it, of them all, joking around and giving Dan a hard time about doing silly things or whatever, and breaking out the Chef Boyardee
Oh yeah,
When's
that's
that,
Boyardee.
when's that sponsor coming in?
Yeah, when's that sponsorship coming in?
Well, I'll tell you what. I actually tried to contact them, and the problem is it's like you can't contact Chef Boyardee. They have like a
Craft
umbrella corporation, right?
Who do you contact for that?
Yeah, I found an email and I emailed them, and they were basically like, "Go away, you little peasant." It was kind of, but I did try.
Yeah, to fully answer that question, though, I guess kind of thinking back, one of Elliot's hunts, it's not necessarily because of like the storytelling in that one, but I really love his early season teal hunts because I don't have that kind of experience in Indiana. You guys go out to like the prairie marshes, and I remember, I think it was, I don't remember if it was this season or the season before, but it's just you and Golden Boy, I think, and you guys have teal just buzzing you everywhere. And like I even asked you about this like later on. I'm like, dude, there's so many teal, and you guys were just picking them off one by one, and like I would have had a hard time like not trying to limit out faster just with the pure excitement of all the teal everywhere and being in such a cool place to hunt. So
yeah, that was the tornado hunt where we were in a tornado warning in a tent the night before. I love that video because you've got the tornado the night, and literally it was like tornado warning, all my family calling me to leave, and then the next morning it's just like teal like gnats.
Yeah,
I love you guys' camping videos. That just adds even more of like the sitting at home. It feels real with me.
And just cooking your ducks right there,
raw, no salt, no pepper.
All right, Elliot. So now that I know you were perusing through Jordan's playlist real quick to find your favorite one.
I was going through my mind of his playlist, and there's several that stand out to me, and I don't know the names of them, but. Jordan, we've talked about that little hole that you have that someone I think burnt down or whatever.
The
blind.
hole.
The little blind.
Yeah, they smashed up the blind.
There were several videos you did from there, and I think those were the very first videos that I saw of yours, and I really like those videos. And then the one with your sister as well. But there's another one that really sticks out is you guys were hunting at a pond. You've only hunted this place once that I've seen. You were at a pond in some kind of blind, and there was like massive flocks coming right. It was early season this last year, and there was massive flocks coming down in, and you guys shot your limit. That I liked that video a lot too. Those
nice.
I don't know what is the name of that. What is the name of that one where the pond?
That one's Cold Front Thunder.
Okay, yeah,
Cold Front Thunder.
That's a good name.
That sounds like it needs to be an episode of mine or something. The foul front, the cold front thunder.
Before I forget to say it, I love the thunder at the beginning of you guys' podcast. I love the thumbnail and I love the thunder. It's such a good way to start it off, man. I just love that.
Both of those things. One of those comes from one of my. The thunder comes from a video of mine, and then I took that picture. So
really,
but.
Nice.
Well, Elliot, you didn't get to your favorite video that you have.
Okay. I've got my favorite. There's from season 2. This was the first time this video that I was like, this is kind of the blueprint for what I want my videos to be like, is the one where I catch Dan putting shotgun shells by that can of Sterno. And I really tear into him about it. And he's talking about burning down a forest when he's a kid and throwing shot. He went off on such a tirade, and he can do this all the time, that I felt like truly I caught Dan at Dan's best in those moments. And he was just saying, like, all that crap he said, like, most people haven't thrown a match down a gas tank. He's literally tried to do that. I mean,
that's like Dan's MO.
Yeah, he's not just saying that stuff. That's how Dan is. Right now, Dan is trying to build his own pizza oven out of clay, and he some of these projects, he always has a project in mind. I'm getting off topic a little bit. Dan is just so the most unusual person I've ever met. He was gonna dig a hole in the concrete of his garage and make his own hot tub with some hot. I mean, it's insane. But anyway, in that video, you've got all Dan's antics, and then you've got really good kill shots and really good shots of birds, both flying and on the water. And at the end of that video, I was like, okay, that was the first time I was like, this is kind of how I want our videos to be, where you're really digging into the personalities of who we are, but yet we're having a good hunt and getting good content of ducks in the air and being killed. And I think I could have, looking back on it, there's some things I could have cut out to make that a little shorter video, but that's probably my favorite. The early teal hunts are good, and the hunt, the really good goose hunt this past year, just as far as the kill shots we got on the river with the geese.
Yeah, those were excellent as well.
But I'd say that's probably, and that spot, I didn't want to even show that video with Dan, because that was a tiny little section of river that was public right up against this town that almost nobody knew that it was public. And since then, they've actually flipped it, and so you can't even hunt it anymore. But no one bothered us in there, and no one knew it was public. And you can see a huge grain elevator in the back. So I knew that people were going to be able to identify this spot. And I was just like, I even put it on Patreon, and my patrons like put up a vote. It's like, should I post this? Should I not post it? And one of the patrons got on Google and was like, well, in about 15 minutes, I could find on a map where it was based on Google. And I'm like, oh my God. And I had to post it though, because I just love the video too much. I had to post it.
That's the hard part about, especially with you guys being cognizant of, maybe, I know that Matt has to be super cognizant when he's doing his mushroom hunting stuff, and we've talked about that before. But that's another element that I kind of have to deal with. I've gotten some heat for like, hey man, why are you mentioning some of these places? And it's, well, man, I don't know.
I'd say one tip for that is just, you don't mention it if you don't mention the actual location. Like you can say, I'm in Indiana or Kansas, or some people, I know Elliot's kind of straight away from even that, but like I'll say that I'm in Indiana, but I won't say what river. Like people ask what river and I don't tell them, and I've had people message me as well saying like, hey, I hunt the same spot as you. I'm like, oh, cool. Like they're all excited about it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Excited.
My kind of thing with it is okay, if it's been on the cover of, Ducks Unlimited magazine, I'm not really going to shy away from, telling stories about some of these cool places. The other thing that kind of goes along with it too, and I've talked about this in some of my past episodes, I really do feel like it's the responsibility of as you would say, evolved hunter to go out and reclaim private lands that are excellent, habitat and hunting spots to kind of be the blow-off valve for these public areas.
Would you say that that would be at like all means necessary, including trespassing?
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding.
Dang it, George.
You just made it sound so like aggressive, like reclaim these private lands. I'm like, whoa.
Reclaim the private lands through, education and letting, these landowners know how good of stewards of conservation and the land we are. That's the thing is who better to take care of this, planet Earth than a hunter, right? That's why we're put here.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I didn't mean to take away from your that was an excellent point. Just too good of a joke to pass up, but I totally agree with you on that.
I would have taken it too. Don't worry. Oh man. Okay, so I always ask guests this, and so we'll kind of wrap her up here. But all right, Elliot, you only get one more duck hunt in your life. Where are you going? Who are you going with? What are you guys hunting? And what's the weather like?
Oh, my last. Now, can I choose the water levels too? Because some of it's dependent on that. What's my dream?
You have perfect conditions.
You have full settings control here.
I have this hole that it's more of a timber hole, and it only has water in it about, I'd say, 30% of the years, and it is my absolute favorite place to hunt. And it's not far off from where a lot of my videos have been shot, but it's not had any water. I take that back. I filmed a couple of teal hunts from this place, and when the conditions are right on this place, to me, it is the most fun place to hunt that I've ever experienced. And it's nowhere. It's I got to travel 45 minutes to get to it from here. And it's kind of the place where I really started having success by myself, away from my home where I grew up, where I found it on my own, figured it out, was shooting limits there by myself, and that's the spot. It's kind of a timber hold, but it's this part of the state, not like Arkansas, but that would be the spot.
Who's with you?
My dad. Me and my dad. Me and my dad and our dogs.
Okay. What's the weather like?
The weather is about 28 degrees, and there's a little bit of ice, but not totally iced over, and it's all mallards.
All mallards. All right.
I've had this, actually. This is a hunt that we had. That I want to relive.
Of course.
That I want to relive.
All right, Jordan?
Surprisingly, mine is pretty similar to Elliot's, and mine would be with my dad, and he's actually never duck hunted, and I've talked him into coming this year, and we've kind of been on this adventure of rediscovering wildlife together in nature and creation, but it kind of brings me back to the beginning of my story, like, how I was saying, like, I'd hunt with my grandpa and my dad growing up, and then really got away from that, I guess in my older teen years through most of my 20s until just a few years ago. And we started fly fishing together, and I got the itch for hunting. And now, I brought him on his first turkey hunt this year. And he got a big tom, and, so for me, it would be definitely with my dad, and the spot that would be at what I call the honey hole. And that's kind of brings me back to my very first duck hunt. And I actually it's not my very first duck hunt. My very first, like, really, really successful duck hunt. We had mallards just coming in everywhere. I didn't realize, like, what duck hunting was like until that day. And, I found it myself. Like, I had hunted the day before on the river, and I could see this hole back off the river. And these ducks were just pouring into it, like duck after duck, flock after flock, just hundreds of ducks going. And, I called up my buddy, and I'm like, man, we got to get out there. We got to go to this spot. And he's kind of a little leery because, like, he's like, man, you don't know anything about duck hunting at this point. And I didn't. Like, and he's like, kind of, like, okay, I'm not really sure about this. So I convinced him to come. Anyways, we get out to the blind, and, it was like 15 minutes before first light. And we had 200 ducks. I don't even know how many. It was a ton of ducks all around us. Just landed everywhere, and I was like freaking out. I wish I had like audio of it, but I didn't. I'm like, dude, there's ducks everywhere. I can't believe this. But anyways, like, just having that crazy experience, and I love taking like people for the first time. And so it won't be, obviously my last hunt won't be my dad's first hunt, but I just really want to have that hunt with my dad. Take him out there and have that same kind of experience with just tons of mallards coming in to my favorite location to hunt.
Yeah. Our stories are so pretty similar, Jordan. There's a lot of parallels, starting with the upland, and then, kind of dad maybe getting into it, too. I just love it. My dad, he's like a turkey thug. The dude lives... He lives for hunting turkeys, and I don't, you talk about a lot, like, there's some cool experiences in your life, and the coolest thing I've seen so far is see my dad turn 12 years old again when we had a group of 30 geese coming in on us, like when we were in a pit blind and, 2 miles from his house. Nothing cooler than that. So
yeah, I can understand that sentiment.
Well, all right. I guess we ought to get into the old plugs portion. Go if you guys haven't listened to the Duck Gun podcast, it's really great. And the thing that I like about it the most, I think, is I feel like, just like Elliot was saying, you kind of get that raw, this is who we are kind of, duck camp. Is that what we called it? Duck camp?
Yep.
The duck camp feeling, and you really get to know them, and the guests that they bring on, they do a really good job of that. And then obviously go check out their respective pages. And what do you guys have for the listeners of Foul Front?
Elliot, you go ahead first.
Well, I just want to say I really appreciate coming on here, and I'm certainly fans of what you guys have going on. It's really impressive, the kind of following that you guys have built, and I am so happy that you guys have this mentality of just working together and collaborating, because I think it's going to just do the whole sport good to have us working together. And if you do want to find my stuff, it's Freelance Duck Hunting on YouTube. And also the website I have developed is Freelance Hunt Stats, where you can log all of your hunts and track your stats. There's a free side of it. Go check that out. And then find our Facebook page at Fellowship of the Duck Gun.
Jordan. All right, and my plugs, Instagram, Duck Gun Chronicles, YouTube, Duck Gun Chronicles, and same Facebook as Elliot. And I also would, I really appreciate you guys having us on here. It's great to collaborate with like-minded individuals. Duck hunting with our decreased numbers, it's no better time for us to be together, as one mind, going after these issues and talking about them and discussing them. And, there's just so many people against hunting that there's no reason that we should be anything but, friends and comrades in this mission of duck hunting.
Absolutely. And then, the other thing too is when it comes to podcasts and duck hunting podcasts, for instance, or there's a lot of people out there still to reach out to. And more than anything, we've just found you guys are good dudes. And I think that's the coolest thing about that I've learned since starting this podcast is there's just a lot of cool dudes out there, and dudettes, obviously, that are and everyone, we'd all share a blind together, we'd all share a beer together, and just no sense. And there's so many people against us, or that don't understand us, or don't even know what this is all about. That's who we got to reach out to. So,
total agreement with that.
But, well, all right, boys. Shall we sign off?
Sounds good to me. It's been a good time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks again, Ben and Tegan.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yep. Now you guys have a good one, and then obviously we're over in your guys' group, the Fellowship of the Duck Guns, and obviously head on over to the Foul Front. I don't even know what we got it named now anymore. Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast group, or something. So, but
not too many Foul Front things out there. So
just type in Foul Front. You'll find it. But all right, guys. Hey, have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast. Please come join us on our Facebook group, the Foul Front Waterfowl Podcast group, where you can connect with a good group of hunters, because we're all in this together. We need to act like it so that hopefully our great grandkids will be hunting ducks over our favorite public lands. We also ask that you go ahead and give us a written review on iTunes and give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. And we really do want to hear back from you so that we can give you the best possible content. And if you get in on that Facebook group, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can tell us what you want to hear next, or you can tell us what you don't like, and we'll be sure to tailor things to our listeners. So, all right. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next week.